What's happening, gang? Back live in the secret stash. Hanging out with my man, Jim Scott. By the way, engineer Steve, doing a good job. Always bringing us in and out mellow. Little Abra? Not a kid. All right. It'll take me the rest of the show to figure out the tie-in to from that to imputed income, but we'll do that. As I said, hanging out with my man, Jim Scott, owner of Scott Family Law. And by the way, you can catch him at Scott, SCO2Ts, scottfamilylaw.net. Or you can call him at 858-794-4900, because chances are, if you're moving through this space right now where someone is maybe trying to hide a little bit of income, and Jim, all love aside, I feel like at least 51% of the time, it's more that side of the spectrum than the other, right? Where someone has got loot and they're trying to park at places and say they're broke. At least that's my own opinion. I'll raise my hand and say that's an opinion zone right there. But in any event, we're fleshing through some of this stuff. If you are in front of a computer right now, we're actually streaming the show live. You can go over to our Twitter handle at Follow the Stash, and you can actually ask Jim a question live. We'll make sure we'll ask it on the air.
Well, I agree with you, Jesse. I think more often than not, we're looking for an ability to earn, whether the person has any money or not. And that leads us into your favorite case and mine, Stewart Vs Gomez.
There we go.
And imputed income, or the ability to earn, was used as a sword in that case. But I wanted to go back to the foundation for just a moment and tell you that, I was looking at the history of this term, and I found a case that was like 100 years old, and it had to do with real estate.
Hey, there we go.
And there was a transfer of property between a couple of brothers and the owner of the property. And the issue had to do with how much rent was being received to pay off the owner of the property. So
they had worked out kind of a deal maybe in the sale.
They had made
where they were using some of the proceeds to pay him off?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
And they weren't paying as much as they should have been paying. And the court was asked to impute income as to the rental value of this property. So anyhow, back to Stewart.
Makes sense.
Stewart versus Gomez is also a real estate case. And what's funny about this case is that, not funny, but tragic, is that Mr. Stewart was put into a vice and squeezed until turnip juice came out of his veins.
Oh, that's great.
Well, he was getting rent-free tribal housing.
What is this, in the medieval times?
Well, it wasn't.
Was that right before he was hined and quartered?
I think it was less than 20 years ago, actually.
Aha. So it was in the desert in Vegas.
Well, we know it was in California.
All right.
But unfortunately, some of this reservation land is remote, and it's just so poor. He was disabled, and he was getting free housing on the reservation. Anybody who's been on disability will tell you that the payment is so low, it's not enough to keep the lights turned on. He had entered into a vocational training program, and as long as he was in that program, he qualified for a meal allowance. So he was getting like $11 or $12 a day for meals.
Oh, so he was living fat on the hog then.
Oh, yeah. $290 a month or $280 a month was his net income on disability, and $80 a month on food stamps. But, yeah, thanks, he didn't have to pay rent because he was on tribal land.
Okay.
The tribe provided him with the house, and as long as he stayed in this vocational training program, he got this extra $80. Well, the child support court found that tribal housing was some kind of employee benefit. Now, they didn't really explain that. His name is Stewart, which sounds a lot more English than Native American. But they said that it had a value, and that could go into the guideline for calculating child support. So they threw in the food stamps, and they threw in his disability income. And they ordered him to pay $190 a month in child support.
Of the what? Of the two what?
Yeah.
What was he getting, two something?
He was getting $290 a month.
Okay.
And he had to pay $190.
So he was left to live on $100 after that. Well, that sounds like a fair deal.
Not just Mr. Stewart, but his kids too.
Unbelievable.
He had, I think he had 2 or 3 kids, and he had them 45% of the time.
Wow.
So that's, equivalent to saying, Mr. Stewart, you're going to have these kids from the 15th of the month to the end of the month, or the 16th to the end of the month, and we hope you don't run out of red beans and rice in the meantime.
Tell me there's a good ending to this.
Well, the clincher of this, in my mind, was that Maria Gomez, the mother of the children, was never going to see the money that was paid by Mr. Stewart. She was on welfare. So she was going to get a welfare check from Inyo County no matter what. This money that was pulled out of Mr. Stewart was just to reimburse the welfare system.
Wow.
Oh, this was out of Inyo County, and, a little bit harsh. In my mind, also, it shows the ability of the court to, go outside what should be the strict limits of the guideline and, exercise their discretion.
Hanging out with my man, Jim Scott. You can catch him at scottfamilylaw.net. And by the way, Jim has a book that he's willing to give all Stash Nation. It is 100 of his favorite California family code sections. We're going to actually put that PDF live on secretstashradio.com under the show notes. What about the next one, Jim? Let's shift gears a little bit. You'd mentioned about Mrs. Is it Eyeless?
Eyeless.
Eyeless.
Now, Eyeless is a much happier case. Kind of weird, but much happier. Mr. Eyeless was a pharmacist, and he and the wife had been married for about 12 years. They had 2 kids aged 15 and 16. And it's significant that these kids were teenagers.
Okay.
Mr. Eyeless had himself admitted to medical school. So he went back to court and he said, I've been ordered to pay $1,000 a month in child support and alimony, but how about giving me a break? And the court said, well, we don't think so, because we need you to support the kids right now, not get 4 years off for medical school and residency and another year or 2 for specialization. The minority of the kids is going to be gone by then.
Okay.
So the court was not very happy with these ideas.
Which seems reasonable, right? I mean, that's when the kids need them the most, right? Especially financially.
I agree. I think this is a case where the ability to earn is properly utilized and said, we need you to earn this money and support these kids right now. I think it's wrong that a person should be able to get out of paying child support or alimony just because they want to make a unilateral decision to change their career or quit working completely. I mean, gosh, a guy could say, well, I'd rather go fishing every day.
Right, and I think that goes back to what you had mentioned at in the top of the show, which was on about one of the 4053s, right? That was sort of tying into that.
It does tie into that.
Yeah.
Now, let's stop and talk about what the court needs to find when they make one of these ability to earn decisions. And there used to be 3 prongs to it. One was that a person had the ability to take a job, and that means they had the training, the education, the experience appropriate for a particular job. Secondly, that there was a particular job or opportunity available.
Okay.
And third, that the person was, quote unquote, shirking. And what that meant was ducking employment.
That's hilarious. And Stash Nation, little did you know that today was also going to be a vocabulary lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, shirking. Second one of the day there. Good. I got it. Now, every time shirking is made, I got to give that a point, too.
Here it comes.
Yeah.
Shirking has been dropped as a component of this not mandatory, but one of the components of ability to earn.
Okay.
And what the court said in Eyeless is we don't have to find that they're shirking on behalf of someone. We don't have to find that they're deliberately avoiding work. But if we find they are deliberately avoiding work, we're going to consider that against the person, too.
Okay.
And that kind of ties us into the next case, Labasse versus Muncie, where Mrs. Muncie was deliberately avoiding work.
Okay. I like the theoretical progression here. Okay, so what happened with Mrs. Muncie?
Well, Barry Labasse and Mrs. Muncie got divorced, and he was paying child support and alimony. I think, I don't know what triggered it, but sometime after the divorce, Mr. LaBasse came to court and he said, she's got a teaching credential, she's got a bachelor's degree, and she's got a master's degree in English, and if I can work, she can work. And I think that rather than buckling down and getting a full-time job in a public school, which actually pays for a master's degree fairly respectably, she wanted to teach part-time at a local college and just pursue another postgraduate degree. So she was also living off of her parents, and that's something that we see in pretty commonly in post-divorce cases.
Okay.
But Mrs. Muncy made a couple of missteps. First of all, she told Mr. LaBasse that she would bury him in court.
That's always a good technique, right?
And that he would have to pay her attorney fees. She told him that she would not work. She had no intention of working. And this is where we are quickly reminded of the caution in the Eyeless case that where the court finds that a person is deliberately avoiding work, that will be used against them. So you go ahead and ask me, well, what is the real significance in your mind, Jim, of the LaBasse versus Muncy case?
I was thinking actually all three of them because I felt like there was a tie that was going to pull it all together.
Okay. Well, as a lawyer, there are two components that we have to show to the court. Okay. The first is that this person has the ability.
Right.
They've got the education, they've got the teaching credential in this case, and that there's a specific job available.
Availability, right.
So how do you prove a person's got a job available?
Internet?
Well, that's good for you. That's, yes, Monster. That's Craigslist.
Right.
Well, this was in the mid-'90s before the Internet was widespread. Mr. LaBasse walked in with a fistful of classified ads from the newspaper.
There you go.
Now, to lawyers, we'd say, well, that's hearsay. That's inadmissible evidence. You can't use that. And the judge got really creative, and he said, well, I don't know that that's hearsay. I don't know that that's really offered to prove the truth. I think that's just to show there's offers out there. And ever since then, we've been able to use everything from Monster to Craigslist to classified ads to show there's jobs out there. There's opportunities out there.
That's brilliant. And what comes up for me right away is wondering the actual, like, the efficacy of those offers. You know, it's like you could imagine some crafty lawyer going and hiring a couple kids to go put some bogus offers out there. So I wonder if there's a level that they would have to actually vet through them to make sure they were real.
Well, or that a lawyer would hire one of his friends to come in and offer a job to the lady.
Right, exactly.
Excuse me, or the man. You know, there's another case that we can take a sidestep on here, and that's the Hinman case.
And you know what we'll do, actually, Jim, if you'll allow me, is we're coming up hard. This actually is ESPN anyway, right? So we're a sports, station. We're going to have our buddies, our affiliates over at CBS, get us caught us up on the sports commentary coming up on the half hour here. But coming up, Jim, we're going to hit that, and also going to get a little bit deeper on exactly what you do over there. I want to maybe take a sidestep from the court cases and learn a little bit more about how you might be able to help people and what makes you different from any other family law practice out there. So right after the break, more with Jim Scott, Real Talk Radio San Diego. We'll be right back.